Hi there. The recent election campaign was a very busy period for many of our academic colleagues, especially those in political science called upon by media to provide expert commentary. In this culture chat, Stephanie Wood chats with one of those experts, Annika Gowya, who shares her reflections about the election campaign and some of the special rituals we have in Australia every election day.
Hi, Annika. As a political scientist who studies political parties in your research, I imagine that your phone rings off the hook every couple of years with the big elections. What was it like this time around?
This election was really, really interesting in terms of looking at the party system in Australia, because this election we experienced a continuation of the long-term shift away from the major political parties in Australian politics towards minor parties, and this time round also towards the teal independents and the voices for movements in Australian politics. So this is something for me as a party scholar that's really interesting, because it signals a shift, I think, towards new ways of doing politics, new ways of organising political participation, mobilising citizens, and also speaks to a demand from electors for a more responsive style of politics and parliamentarian. Someone who represents their local communities, someone who's able to listen to policy concerns that go beyond the main ideological differences between political parties. So I think the next 3 years in Australian politics are going to be really interesting.
So I assume that you also really love election day. What's your election day ritual?
Well, I'm pretty eager to get up in the morning and get to a polling booth and vote. But this year I was like, I think a record number of Australians who voted before the polls opened, either through postal votes or pre-poll voting. So I'd already pre-polled. And this was to allow myself enough time to undertake a very comprehensive examination of democracy sausages around Sydney. So I set myself a goal this year, because we had a unique contest with both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition being based in Sydney electorates, Grayndler and Cook. I could directly compare democracy sausages in both of those electorates. So I started in the inner west at 8 a.m. and made my way around to 4 booths in Grayndler and also 4 booths in Cook just before lunchtime. And I have to tell you, I was feeling pretty sick around lunch, but it provided some really interesting insights into how democracy works in practice. And I think the biggest thing to note is the fact that we have democracy sausage is something that is characteristically Australian. And traditionally it exists because we have compulsory voting, and our voting usually takes place on a Saturday to allow the most number of people to have their say and to vote. But it's also a really interesting community event, and it's more about our collective responsibility as citizens to vote than it is about individual rights. So democracy sausage is a bit of fun. It's a way to fundraise for schools and for local communities, but it's also a way for people to come together and experience voting collectively.
Well, wonderful to hear there from Annika, one of our very talented colleagues, an expert not just in political parties, but also in what makes for a good democracy sausage.